I hope you watched my video showing a maximum landscape difficulty max level lore master a couple of days ago. And I'm going to be releasing this video, which shows this level 71 very poorly geared uh, blue lore master. I just created one video showing him tackling normal mobs, which were a level or two higher than him. I'm now in an area where there's going to be elites, very strong elites, but which are going to be, I think, about 6 levels lower than the character. I would have preferred to have shown you elites which are about the same level as the character. I couldn't think of an easy place that I could get to with this character which would have such things. So here we are in this area, which is unfortunately critters that are going to be much lower level, but elites nonetheless, and they are going to be very strong. The major difference between the immediately previous video and this one, as far as the character is concerned, is that I am going to use Sign of Paravigilance, whereas I used no buffs at all before. Sign of Paravigilance is a simple castable buff. It gives some stealth detection, which is not important for this situation, but it does give the Lore Master and every unit in its fellowship, including its own pet, an extra 10% morale. So we are going to cast that and make sure we have that extra morale going for the length of this video. If you didn't watch the previous video, I'll just remind you about I'll just show you what the class traits look like. This character is a blue lore master. He's spec blue. He has just enough in red to get Storm and Staff, which adds a lot of range and a lot of damage to your Staff Strike skill. And he has this emergency button, Bane Flare, which allows him to daze a very large number of targets in a small radius around himself, which is a nice emergency button in case you just pull too many things or you get in a sticky situation. Some of the skills here are just kind of filler. You have to have at least 30 other trait points allocated in order to get these two here at the bottom, which are very important. Both Murder of Crows and Feral. I'm going to try to not use Murder of Crows during this example, just because you can only use Murder of Crows, as you can see here, once every 2 minutes. So it's not something you'd use on every poll. So I'm going to try to show you how you just do normal polls with elites with a character like this. I'll also remind you that his gear is really garbage. He does have a couple of well, this is crafted gear from level 58. That's a lot lower than his level of 71. He has one level 70 ring, one level 71 ring. I think the rest of it is level 50 gear, level 48 gear, level 50 gear. This is level 50, 50, 59. So his gear is, for the most part, it's garbage. The traceries and his LIs are okay. There's nothing wrong with them. As you can see, I haven't enhanced the slots in his traceries very much. But he has just whatever things I happen to have kind of laying around when he got to a level where I needed to fill the slots. We are going to be using Burning Embers. We are going to use Cracked Earth, but none of it's really all that special. Most of it's what's called the rare level, which is the second worst type of tracery you can have. I think he has one or two things that are, he has an incomparable tracery, which is the second best kind of tracery. But for the most part, it's these purple things. Oh, here's a yellow one. Yeah, that's the worst kind of tracery. But he's fine. The important thing to know about the gear on the character, especially for a blue lore master, is that it doesn't matter that much. I mean, of course, you want to have the best gear you can have. But the pets do not directly benefit from your gear. Only the character, the Lore Master character itself does. Now, the Lore Master character is going to add a lot of important things to a battle. Its own damage and debuffs and other things. Oh, we just pulled aggro somehow. Help me. And I'm dead. I'm dead because this character is wearing cloth. It's wearing cloth that's mostly 20 levels lower than himself, and these guys hit really hard. So that was not good. Now I bet I have a long run back. Yeah, it's going to be a long run back. I hope you'll bear with me as I run back. Let's just get the bird out. I won't bother with my with my cosmetic pets this time, so maybe I can stay a little more focused. Before the character got defeated just now, what I was saying was that the gear doesn't really matter that much, or at least it doesn't matter as much for a Blue Lore Master as it does for almost any other kind of character. And the reason for that is because the gear has no impact on the direct stats, the outgoing damage, the incoming damage, or anything like that of the pet. None whatsoever. Zero. You get better gear. Your Lore Master has more tactical mastery. Your Lore Master has more vitality and therefore more morale. Your Lore Master will take a little less damage from having better mitigations. Let's stay away from that guy. but the pet does not change because of your gear. On the upside, that means you can have really bad gear like this character does and still have an effective pet. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't think of a good place to go that had on-level elites. These guys are 6 levels lower than the Lore Master, and I do wish I could have shown you on-level elites. These are not signatures, by the way. These are elites. They're stronger than signatures. And these are actually very strong elite mobs. They're very strong. As you saw, I got wiped out. Maybe it was 2 hits, but it might have been 1 hit when I wasn't paying attention back there. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to send in the bird. We are going to hit Retribution. Retribution is going to give us a buff, which allows each of our wizard sigils to apply the maximum wild sigil tiers on our pet with only a single cast. Well, up to tier 5, rather than having to require 5 casts of each of these wizard sigils. And that's going to give the pet a lot of extra damage. It means it's going to take a lot less damage when it gets hit. And that's going to make the pet more than capable of taking care of these guys. Now we're going to send the pet in first so it gets 1 or 2 hits, so it gets at least a little bit of threat on that thing before I put some threat on it. And here's Retribution, Stuns, Wizard's Spark, Wizard's Fire, Wizard's Frost, and now I need the pet to get the threat back. He's going to do Minor Pet Command, and I'm going to do Sign of the Wild Rage, which is the thing I'm going to do the most often. Because Sign of the Wild Rage has only a 15-second cooldown, and its cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds every time I do any elemental skill. I'm going to do Burning Embers, because Burning Embers applies a nice dot as well as a mitigation penalty on the target. And there you can see I just cast each of my sigils one time. Sign of the Wild Rage is ready to use again. I'm even going to use Minor Pet Command again. There go my sigils. And as you can see, the pet is taking a little bit of damage, but really, not a lot. And it's healing itself using the skill that gets triggered by Sign of the Wild Rage. Wild Peck heals the pet a little bit each time. So we're going to find another one of those giants. That's not a giant. By the time we find one, there's one. I don't want his sigils running out, so I'm going to recast them as soon as I can. It's a ranged attacker. I'm going to get hit. I took a hit. Oh, I took 2 hits. I'm going to use some Water Lore to heal myself, but the pet has aggro now, and it's not going to lose it. And it's not taking a lot of damage because it has its defensive buffs fully tiered up. As soon as I finish casting these sigils, I'm going to put some more Water Lore on myself. And I'm going to cast Water Lore on myself again, because that does stack on the target. Water Lore is a pretty weak heal, but you can stack it several times. Let's use Fan the Flames to finish this thing off. That's the end of that. Okay, pet took a little bit of damage, not a whole lot. Let's send the pet in first on this guy just to get him out of the way. And even at difficulty 9, the pet's auto attack is going to finish that thing off all by itself. I should use the sigils again, but I'm not going to. Oh man, the pet missed a couple of times. Boy, that was bad luck. Let's send the pet right in on that giant. Minor Pet Command, Sign of the Wild Rage, refreshing the sigils, Burning Embers for a dot and a debuff, Sign of the Wild Rage again, pet heals itself a little bit, refresh the sigils, time for Minor Pet Command, Sign of the Wild Rage, let's interrupt that, Wild Sigils, and then we're going to use the big hit, Fan the Flames, with Major Pet Command, Sign of the Wild Rage, and it's all over. Yeah. And the pet took a little bit of damage, but I didn't use any heals on the pet at all. I mean, none. Now, why am I able to cast all that stuff without having to worry about getting hit? Well, first of all, the pet's doing a lot of damage. It's doing a lot more damage than I am. So, threat, you get aggro, that is, something decides to attack you, if you're higher on its threat table than anything else. The main thing that affects how much threat you have on any enemy's threat table is how much damage you've done. There's all kinds of modifiers and multipliers and other ways of generating threat, but it's mainly about damage. Healing also generates threat, and healing in fact will generate threat on anything you happen to be in combat with, not just whatever you happen to be hitting. So that's why you have to be a little careful sometimes with doing some healing. You have to make sure that the pet is applying threat to everything. And that's why it's nice to have a pet like the eagle, because the eagle has AoE attacks. But it's not only that. The Minor Pet Command skill transfers a small amount, I don't know the numerical value, a small amount of your threat to itself, to the pet. Major Pet Command transfers 51% of your threat to the pet. That means as long as you don't do anything else that generates threat afterwards, anything you're in combat with immediately chooses the pet as its target instead of you. That's really helpful. You don't even have to have a taunt going on. Now, of course, if you do more threat to something that's not getting more threat applied to it by the pet, you're going to still be able to pull aggro. But if you don't do anything else after that, the pet is going to have aggro because it's going to have more threat on the threat tables of any unit than you will. Sign of the Wild Rage does not transfer threat. However, Inner Flame, which is a heal for both you and the pet, does transfer threat. And that's something you want to keep in mind also. It's not only a heal, but it's a threat transfer. Note that the threat transfer does not show in the tooltip for Inner Flame, it does not show in the tooltip for Major Pet Command, and it does not show in the tooltip for a Minor Pet Command. I don't know the numerical values of the threat transfer for Minor Pet Command. It's very small. I don't know the exact numerical value of threat transfer for Inner Flame. It's substantial, but it's not 50%. I do know that Major Pet Command is 51%. And that makes it the thing to use if you need to get a lot of threat transfer. Of course, Major Pet Command has a lot of other value besides that. In the case of the Eagle, it causes the Eagle to use its most powerful attack as well. And just the Eagle using its most powerful attack is going to generally be enough for it to pull aggro off you. That is, it's going to have more than enough threat to pull aggro off you, even without the threat transfer, because that does an awful lot of damage. So there's really rarely an issue with the pet holding aggro. Once the pet has fully tiered up wild sigil buffs, and that's why Retribution is so important. I'm going to start with Retribution on this soldier here. He's going to run to me, and then the pet's going to finish it off for me. In fact, I'm going to turn off the assist, because I don't want the pet running over to the guy. I want him standing where he is and then running over to me when the stun is over, and then having the pet close to me when it happens. So Retribution, Wizard Spark, Wizard's Fire, Wizard's Frost. Here he comes. I'm going to use Minor Pet Command, and the pet's going to pull him right off. And the pet pulled him right off as soon as I used the right skill. Of course, I screwed up, but that wasn't too bad. Let's send the pet right in for this giant here. I'm going to use Knowledge of the Lore Master, which is a nice debuff. I'm going to use Minor Pet Command right away. I'm going to use Sign of the Wild Rage right away. I'm going to refresh all 3 of the Sigil buffs by using my 3 Wizard Sigil spells. I'm going to use Burning Embers, which puts a dot and a nice debuff on the target. I'm going to refresh those Sigils again. And I'm going to have the pet use Sign of the Wild Rage, which is an attack. I'm going to have it use Minor Pet Command, which is another attack, which also applies a dot to the target. And now I'm going to refresh all those things. I'm going to use Sign of the Wild Rage as soon as it comes off cooldown, which is very quick. And I'm going to have the pet use its big Fan the Flames attack, which is a big instant attack and also applies a big dot to the target, and down it goes. Pet took some damage, but notice that I didn't do any healing on the pet. Even against this elite, I didn't use Light of Hope, I didn't use Water Lore, I didn't use Inner Flame. The pet was healing itself a little bit every time I used Sign of the Wild Rage, and because its defensive buffs were fully tiered up, tier 5, it was not really taking a whole lot of damage to begin with. And I could always have used Sign of the Wild Protection, which would have reduced the pet's incoming damage by about 25%. For 15 seconds, as well as given the Lore Master itself a nice buff. So I'm going to stop here. I think that demonstrates pretty well that you can take on elites, even your own level, even slightly higher, with a blue Lore Master, even one that's poorly geared. I do apologize for these guys being lower level than me, but these are actually particularly strong elites for their level, so I think it was still a reasonable demonstration. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.